This is a Right Stand exclusive that follows our Tuesday news break, courtesy our investigations editor Manoj Gupta, where again this aspect of competitive terrorism saw a key Hizbul Mujahideen operative being neutralized by other jihadi outfits. But what that did is it brought Syed Salahuddin out of his burrow and in public light. That's the big news break, ladies and gentlemen. The Hizbul Mujahideen chief has been seen on Pak soil and being covered, protected by the Pakistani army. You please see those visuals. These are visuals right from the funeral rites procession of Imtiaz, the Hizbul Mujahideen operative who was killed actually by rival terrorist groups or jihadi tanzeems in Pakistan. And Salahuddin, after the nod from the ISI, was seen in public and he's being covered by the special forces of the Pakistani army. Look at that. Look at the number of people. Pakistan army is giving cover fire or giving protection to a most wanted terrorist, ladies and gentlemen. Salahuddin seen freely roaming in Pakistan's Rawalpindi. And not just that, he's at a Pak army ground attending the burial of the Hizbul commander who is one of his closest confidants. And sources are telling CNN News 18 that the presence of Salahuddin and that too in Rawalpindi clearly suggests the Pak army is helping these groups. That means once again the FATF was led up the garden path, misinformed about Pakistan's compliance. We are given to understand that Bharat is likely to take up this issue against Pakistan on all forums. Let's go back to our guest, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra. How is it that nations that who are superpowers and possess all sorts of intelligence, allow themselves to be walked up the garden path when Pakistan says, "Hamare yahan koi terrorist nahi hai, sab Afghanistan mein"? This is proof.
Well, because they find it convenient to believe Pakistan as and when it suits their strategic interests. But sometimes this deception can be self-defeating for Pakistan itself. For example, the funeral you're talking about is taking place in Rawalpindi, which is the headquarters of Pakistan Army. The man, Salahuddin, is being protected by gun-toting army soldiers.
Yes.
So what else can be a greater deception or a bluff than this? That a known terrorist, a declared terrorist both by India and America, is being given protection publicly and after a solemn declaration to Financial Action Task Force that these people are no longer in Pakistan. So I think the world community needs to be informed, as you said. The forums need to be apprised of this. But more than that, Pakistan needs to be shamed as Javed Akhtar did recently in Lahore. He did it very politely but very effectively.
But shaming doesn't take us anywhere. Six of the, at least 5 of the top 7 most wanted are all in Pakistan, Professor Brahmachalani. And they're all globally designated terrorists. So how is Pakistan allowed to get away, especially at a time when they are in a state of economic penury?
You're absolutely right in raising that question. Pakistan has had 2 powerful international backers, China and the US. So sponsoring cross-border terrorism pays because Pakistan has always had one or both of these powers shielding it. Unfortunately, Pakistan's double game on terrorism is aided by America's own double game on terrorism. For example, the Biden administration has sought to paint the Afghan Taliban as good terrorists and ISIS-K, Al-Qaeda and the Haqqani network as bad terrorists. Pakistan may have spent decades setting fires in South Asia, yet the Biden administration has resumed America's coddling of Pakistan by pretending that Pakistan is not an arsonist, but the fire brigade. Why doesn't the US strip Pakistan of its major non-NATO ally status or add Pakistan to its list of state sponsors of terrorism? Pakistan is conspicuously missing from the State Department's list of state sponsors of terrorism. In fact, far from imposing sanctions on Pakistan, Washington is rewarding Pakistan with a deal to modernize Pakistan's F-16 fleet. Against which country is Pakistan's F-16 fleet directed at? against India.
India.
The F-16s are also a nuclear delivery vehicle for Pakistan.
Correct.
So here is the US modernizing Pakistan's F-16 fleet so that it becomes more lethal against India. But as far as Pakistan is concerned, it's clear that Pakistan is cementing its status as a mecca of terrorism. It has institutionalized terrorism by employing armed jihadists in low-intensity asymmetric warfare against neighboring countries. And it continues to host UN-designated terrorist entities and individuals. Saeed Salahuddin is just one of many international terrorists Pakistan allows to roam freely in the country.
Right.
Take another case. Hafiz Saeed
Yes.
was listed as a global terrorist by the UN in late 2008, and subsequently in 2012, the US put a 10 million bounty on him. Yet Saeed is living in the open in Pakistan,
Correct.
spouting jihadist propaganda and plotting attacks against India. And that brings me to India's role. You see, India tends to play the victim. If you play the victim, you'll always remain the victim.
Correct.
India has to get out of that mindset. It has to be proactive. I don't want to say on national television what India needs to do.
Correct.
But you cannot be playing victim constantly, because you will be condemned to remain a victim.
Right. I have to move on, but quickly, Ambassador Rajiv Togra, we are spending $80 billion buying aircraft, whereas America is spending dollars upgrading F-16s for Pakistan. Something's wrong with our foreign policy then. We may want to keep trade and geopolitics separate, but not at this level.
Well, I don't think that's one should come to that radical conclusion. But the fact is that America too has changed a lot vis-a-vis Pakistan. I agree that America still regards Pakistan as a major non-NATO ally. So that is a big drawback. And one can also argue that if they could take out Osama bin Laden and Zawahiri, why didn't they take out Hafiz Saeed? Similarly, the argument can be applied to India as to why it is not proactive. Well, India has been proactive, not just during the present government, but even during the previous governments. People don't recall, but in 80s and 90s, Pakistan was given a sort of a quid pro quo that made them realize the cost of provoking India. And that is why for some time there was a reduction in terrorism. Similarly, after Balakot and our surgical strikes, things have stabilized to a limited extent, not entirely to India's liking. But to say that India is not doing anything, I don't think would be fair. The other thing is, Pakistan...
Please complete.
Just one small point. Pakistan habitually indulges in deception. Look at the case of Russia. Russia was leaning over backwards to supply it oil till it discovered Pakistan had started supplying arms to Ukraine to be used against Russia. So Pakistan is a master of deception. We have to be one step ahead of its tricks.
Well, thank you for your comments, but it's not that it's not enough is being done, but something is being done, but is enough being done? That's the question that I was pointing to. And if we're going to sign deals with nations that is going to employ or give them employment more than 1 million jobs, then one job they need to do is stop equipping Pakistan. That's all they need to do. So at time we started asserting on that point. Thank you very much, Professor Brahmachalani and Ambassador Rajiv Togra. Always a pleasure. Thank you very much. Moving on. So Pakistan has funds for terror and has got army personnel to guard terrorists, but they don't have money for the army. CNN News 18 has learned from sources that Pakistan is having no funds to feed its army, ladies and gentlemen. According to a top military source, and this is again inputs courtesy investigations editor Manoj Gupta, some letters from field commanders have been received at the Quartermaster General's office in the General Headquarters Rawalpindi or GHQ Rawalpindi. The letters are stating about food supply and demand. The rising inflation is disturbing the food supply chain in the soldiers' messes. They also claim that they have already cut the soldiers' food fund, which was doubled and approved by General Rail Sharif during Operation Zarbeaz in 2014. The letter says that despite austerity, not able to feed soldiers 2 times properly. The Army Chief has directed the Quartermaster General, Chief of Logistics Staff and Director General Military Operations to make sure all operations including food supplies and demand more funds from the Defence Ministry on an urgent basis. The top commanders including the DGMO and Chief of Logistics Staff and the Quartermaster General have raised these concerns with the Army Chief General Army Asim Munir. The commanders have also briefed about the security situation and ongoing military operations in the country. The Pakistan military have already cut 50% in soldiers' food funds. On an average, the Pakistan military spends about $13,400 per soldier annually, and Pakistan's food inflation surged from 12% to 36%. That's what's happened. Meanwhile, Pakistani generals and officers have been blamed of running civilian operations and pocketing crores, and there's no accountability sought. The Defence Minister Khwaja Asif has opened up another front. He's blamed the former ISI Director General Faiz Hamid for the rising terrorism in the country.
As Minister of Defence, ख्वाजा साहब क्या आप डिमांड करेंगे कि जनरल फैज को पार्लियामेंट में बुलाया जाए?
मेरे मुल्क में जो है जिस शख्स ने ये कहा कि सब ठीक हो जाएगा, आई वुड लाइक टू आस्क हिम.
We would all like to ask him. We would all like to
ask him. फ्लोर ऑफ द हाउस में मैं अब ये बात करने को तैयार हूँ कि इससे बुला के पूछा जाए कि आपने ये कहा था, फरमाया था, आप जरा आके बताते ना ऑन द फ्लोर ऑफ द हाउस.